All right, so I just got home pretty late from UFC 309, and okay, I'm gonna say something. The first two fights on the main card was expected. Now, the prelims actually had a lot more excitement than the main card, which is crazy. But the main card, the first two fights were expected. I mean, I was expecting a finish in the first fight just because I knew one of the guys fighting was one of the fighting nerds. So I figured he was going to make a stamp on that, right? But nope, a decision. And then you get to the three final events. This is going to be the cherry on top. The fights that we've been waiting for. Bo Nickel versus Paul Craig showed a lot about where Bo Nickel really was. It was just a very tit-for-tat thing. I don't know if Nickel seemed hesitant or something, but that was not what we expected it to be. Then we had Oliveira versus Chandler, which, okay, I'm going to give credit where it's due. The backpack slams at the end that Chandler did to kind of put on a show at the end were good. But he could have actually turned around and upset in the fifth round. But I'm just surprised it even made it to the fifth round. Knowing how hard those guys threw down in the past, it was just another thing where it's like, man, they really underperformed for some compared to their first fight. And then you got the second one, which was just kind of hard to watch. In fact, I felt bad for Michael Chandler because he's got held down the entire time with his wrestling pedigree. And then John Jones versus Stipe Miocic. And it was the only finish on the card. John Jones did do a really interesting finish to Stipe. And Stipe's done, I'm pretty sure. John Jones teased something next, but, he kind of avoided Aspinall by name, obviously, so it's pretty obvious to say that, he's going to continue the rage bait. He'd rather, mention the president-elect and Jesus Christ, and then he's going to use that to go away from Aspinall and not mentioning him. So I think that this saga is probably going to continue. And you know what? The fans obviously want to see Aspinall versus Jones, and he said he wants to give the fans what they want, right? But when you're facing Stipe, who's had a 4-year layoff, really old, Stipe looks slower, but Stipe was still catching Jones with some stuff. Like, Jones looked beatable for someone like Tom Aspinall or one of the younger up-and-comers that are coming up. So, and even then, Jones underperformed against someone like Stipe with that 4-year layoff. It should have been a first-round finish, seeing how slow Stipe went. But there were things that Stipe was throwing that even John was being wary of. John did have to think a little bit, but still, an underperformance. Nonetheless, I could look at all the ifs, ands, and the what else's and everything like that. But it just seemed like this card, as much as they hyped it up, and I think this is a consequence of when the UFC hyped something up through its machine, they put a lot behind Bo Nickel, and Bo Nickel gave the explanation, which is true, that he hasn't had too many pro fights. The UFC kind of pushed him early in his pro fighting career. They really wanted to market this dude, and then he underperformed despite putting him on a John Jones card to try and hype it up a little bit. It just seemed like this whole thing kind of karmically backfired for giving a fight that no one really wanted to see. In fact, a lot of the people who were on Stipe's side still have bragging rights a little bit because Stipe should not have lasted that long. But everything just kind of seemed not like what we were building it up to be in our minds. Is that our fault? Maybe. But the UFC hyping and glazing this card did not help. This card was a massive backfire compared to what other pay-per-view standards are. But that's really all I got to say. I just think overall, I'm going to make some in-depth videos next. But this whole card was an underperformance. Brutal honesty. Peace out.